Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Karen demands I pay for her son to go to Disney. After that, you're the only one who ever cleans the house? Okay, we'll clean too. And after that, my friends expected guests to pay for drinks at their party. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen does not get to go to Disney. I always preferred Universal Studios, to be honest. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Karen demands I pay for her son to go to Disney. I, 28 female, and my husband, 30 male, do not have kids. We both have decent paying jobs and real estate. That said, we love to travel and many times also pay and invite our families to go with us. My brother, who's 26, got married and had my nephew, who's 4, with my middle school best friend, who's 28. Yes, he married my best friend, and we're still best friends. They had my nephew, and years later they divorced. To the point, my brother started dating his new girlfriend, we will call her Ashley. They've been together for around 9 months. They're not engaged or married. She has a son who's 5, we'll call him John. I've only met John a handful of times. He's a nice kid, but I don't really know him. I only know Ashley on a first-name basis in a way. We talk occasionally, but nothing in depth. I invited my ex-sister-in-law and my nephew to go to Disney this summer for 6 days. 2 days at Disney, 1 day at Universal. The remaining days would be chill/Orlando days. We're paying for them to go. I've always wanted to take my nephew to Disney since he was smaller. He loves Mickey. We didn't tell him in front of John or Ashley, but it made it back to Ashley that we're taking him. She confronts me at a family dinner on the side and tells me that she's upset we're not including her kid and that he should have been invited too. She said that he doesn't feel like he fits in or his family with us and that we're excluding him from Disney and it's making him cry. I was so shocked. We are easily paying $2,000 for my nephew and best friend to go. Tickets, airfare, lodging, and of course some toys. I blew up. I told her that I didn't even know her or her kid. They've only been around for a few months and he's not my nephew. I told her I didn't like the entitled mentality and to make it a point, I would make sure to exclude her from all future family gatherings. She left crying. My brother and parents are all upset with me that I'm excluding this kid and isolating them. I told them if they'd like to pay for them, I don't mind them tagging along, but they all said, "You have more means than us." They're not doing great financially, which is why I didn't ask them in the beginning. She made a huge Facebook post and everyone is siding with her. Did I go too far? Should I have offered to include them? Am I the jerk? She's not married to your brother, but still making demands? Wowza, that's entitlement on a new level. The only reason her son was crying over this is because she told him all about it. This is her fault. I hope your brother realizes what kind of person she is in time. Not the jerk. Hope you and your nephew and your best friend and ex-sister-in-law all have a wonderful time. Not the jerk. No one should assume someone is going to pay for their kid to go anywhere, much less an overnight trip. If he loves Disney, she can take him. If his feelings are hurt he's not going to Disney, then that's on her, especially since she apparently chose to share information on the trip with her kid. Everyone sucks here. I think the only part where you were the jerk is where you made it a point to tell her that you'll exclude her and her kids from future family gatherings. Why do you get to do that? You get to decide for the whole family if she's accepted or not? Did you ask the others for permission to run their relationships? You were very cruel. You could have just told her that the trip was planned before you even met her. Or you could have just told her that she was out of line for the entitled mentality, which I agree was a jerk move on her part, or some other kinder way of brushing her off. Kindness to new additions of the family is free. Everyone sucks here. There's no problem with only taking your nephew. Your money, your choice. It might be different if they were around long enough or if they were married, but that's not what's going on here. Also, your family shouldn't be telling you what to do with your money. I do think you went too far in blowing up and planning to exclude this kid from all family gatherings in the future. Kind of feels like you were spoiling for a fight. You're the only one who ever cleans the house? Okay, we'll clean too. Context. My friends and I house shared with the worst people ever, a couple. They were loud, messy, gross, and they shouted all day and all night. They took priority over all communal spaces and made it seem like we weren't welcome in our own house. They also stole from us constantly. Here's the kicker. Despite all that, They were very strict on house rules. For us, obviously, not themselves. We would get screamed at if we made any noise whilst they were sleeping, but they could stomp around the house, shouting and going off, slamming all of the doors at 3 a.m. as much as they wanted to. Obviously, the house wasn't this clean, crisp haven of peace. It was an 8-person student house, so you can expect a bit of noise and mess. We tried explaining to them that if they can leave their dishes to rot and mold in the kitchen, we could maybe get a bit more slack with what we were allowed to do. If we left a cup next to the sink overnight, they would break it. They would try to paint this picture of us being these horrible, messy, and inconsiderate housemates. We were literally too scared to leave our rooms and lived off takeout for months so we didn't make any mess. We did everything, the cleaning of the whole house, the bins, cleaning up the mess, etc. As mentioned above, we stayed in our rooms and would go to each other's rooms and didn't cook in the kitchen or go downstairs for anything. So when we stopped cleaning the downstairs, we were never down there, so no mess was ours. It started to get messy from their own doing. Empty drink bottles everywhere, cushions thrown around, rubbish all over the floor. One of them decides to tidy their own mess before they both left for a few days. We were finally able to relax and chill downstairs. We didn't feel anxious anymore. We went out. They didn't let us leave the house without them. All brilliant and good until we get a text message. Can we make sure to keep the house tidy, as I've just cleaned all of the downstairs as it was too messy? The text changed something in me. I don't know if it was the acting like cleaning up your own mess is this amazing favor, or acting like it wasn't her and her boyfriend's mess she cleaned up, and us disgusting little rats would mess up her beautiful cleaning job instantly. So I decided to clean. I picked up everything in the living room and kitchen that belonged to them and put it in a nice big pile over their personal hob. When I say everything, I mean everything. Bits of their rubbish, their moldy mugs and plates that had insects on them. The man had a whole countertop dedicated to empty spice containers. I wasn't allowed my cup with my cutlery in it on the counter. When they found the pile, they asked me why I didn't throw out the rubbish. I said something along the lines of, "You said you cleaned these rooms, so I assumed you wanted to keep the moldy wrappers since they've been here for weeks." I honestly just wanted to show them that they also make messes too, a lot more than anyone else here. Also that her impeccable cleaning missed a few spots. My friends expected guests to pay for drinks at their party. This past weekend, my wife, who's 41, female, and I, 42, male, attended one of our friends' parties that I was invited to. For context, my friend, 42, male, and his girlfriend, who's 48, and their 2 friends, also mid-40s, were hosting this party, the 4 of them together. A few weeks ago, when I received the invitation, I realized that it said on it something along the lines of, "Please be prepared to purchase your own drinks." Didn't think much of it at the time, considering I just thought they were hiring a bartender or something. But fast forward to the day of the party. I arrive with my wife, and it's my friend and his girlfriend standing behind their kitchen counter that they were using as their bar, making and charging the guests for drinks. Now I was confused for a few reasons. 1. The fact that this party was held at my friend's house. It's not like this was at an event space or something where this would be normal in my opinion. And 2. There was no bartender that they hired or anything like that. It was literally 2 of the 4 of them standing in the kitchen at a time, making drinks for people, and then charging them all accordingly. Drinks were all under $10. Now, I don't know if this is actually a common thing, but I've never in my 42 years of living been to a party at a friend's house where the hosts are charging you for drinks. I've had multiple parties over the years that I've invited my friend and his girlfriend to, in which case they have attended, and I've never charged anyone for drinks ever. I've always bought all of the drinks myself and had an open bar type situation where my guests can make their own drinks, and I even had a proper bartender once, and still no one was charged. It was an open bar. I honestly felt like my friend, his girlfriend, and their friends were all trying to make a quick buck off of their guests who attended, clearly to cover the costs of the drinks. Which, yeah, I understand that booze isn't cheap these days, but we're talking splitting the costs of whatever they bought between 4 people. Like, in my opinion, if you can't afford to supply drinks at your own party, why are you having a party in the first place? This also wasn't for charity or anything. The money made off of the drinks was for them to split. My wife and I bought 1 drink each, stayed for about an hour or so, and said our goodbyes. When we were leaving, my friend asked why we didn't have that much to drink. I told him because I think it's ridiculous that they're charging their close friends for drinks. He called me cheap and an unsupportive friend. I assured him that I'm not. If the charging of drinks was for a good cause, like profits go to charity or something, of course I'd buy more. I told him I find the fact that they're charging for drinks and keeping the money for themselves ridiculous and taking advantage of their friends. Anyway, now my friend and his girlfriend are upset about this and have been calling me a jerk to our mutual friends. Am I the jerk? For any of those wondering, after reading the comments, my wife and I decided to exclude my friend and his girlfriend from any of our future parties. I blocked both of them as well. Not the jerk. That's tacky. I get bring your own beer, but this is a whole other level. I wouldn't have even gotten one drink. Not the jerk. That's just so weird. I could understand if it was in an event space or they had hired a bar and a bartender, but charging people for a drink in your own home is just weird. I would have left too. Normal friends. Hey, our budget's a little tight this month, but we still want to see everyone, so feel free to bring your own drinks. Your friends. Yeah, we're gonna charge you guys. Not the jerk. Am I the jerk for refusing to give my guests the same breakfast I have? So I, 19 female, and my boyfriend, 22 male, live together. We don't have much money and we try to be as frugal as possible, but we each have specific things in which we decide to spend some extra money on. Mine is breakfast. I like having a good nutritious breakfast and it really does influence my mood. So I spend on buying myself high-protein yogurt, granola, fruits, nuts, and orange juice to have breakfast every day. My boyfriend doesn't care as much as me of breakfast and doesn't even like yogurt and orange juice that much, so I usually make him something else with whatever was cheap at the supermarket that week, and he never has a problem with it. I have a friend who's 18 who studies in the city 1 hour away and recently came to visit for the weekend. She was our guest as we invited her. Everything was fine until Saturday morning. I woke up early and had breakfast. She woke up a little later and asked what I was eating because it looked great. I said thanks. When my boyfriend woke up, I told them they could make pancakes with dulce de leche, chocolate milk or coffee or tea, omelet, oatmeal, or homemade bread with butter or dulce de leche. I thought that was a great amount of options, more than I normally have at home. I also had the morning free and didn't mind spending some time cooking, so I was willing to make half-elaborate breakfasts. She asked me if she could have what I was eating. I was caught off guard, but tried to explain in the nicest way possible that my breakfast is something I spend a little extra on myself because I really enjoy it and I can't really afford to feed everyone the same. She frowned and said something under her breath I don't remember now, but agreed to have whatever my boyfriend wanted. Everything felt awkward for a couple of hours, but eventually we put it behind us and enjoyed the rest of the weekend. She left yesterday, and today she sent me a paragraph saying not sharing something like breakfast is greedy, and it made her question if she wants to be friends with someone like that. I wanted to apologize, but my boyfriend said not to because she was acting entitled. Am I the jerk? Edit. I wasn't planning on eating in front of her. I just woke up early and thought she wouldn't wake up for at least an hour. I now know, however, I should have just not eaten that on that day. I understand and will apologize to her. However, I feel like people insulting me don't understand at all what being poor and having one thing to enjoy for yourself is. I try to share everything. I just have this one thing I really like, and I spend a good portion of my income on it. I didn't ask her for 1 penny for all of the meals I fed her the weekend, and I did have the budget to afford them. You're the jerk. I'm sorry, this food is too expensive to waste on you is a very rude message to give a house guest, especially a short-term guest that you invited. If you need help offsetting the cost of feeding her, if things are truly that tight, you make it clear when you give the invitation. But if you're buying luxury foods for yourself and a short-term housemate wants a normal amount of them during a meal where you're eating them, it's incredible that you felt comfortable saying no and then sitting there while you ate your VIP breakfast. OP should have just eaten what her boyfriend and guest were eating. It's totally fine having luxury items just for yourself, especially if you aren't rolling in cash, but don't eat them in front of guests. You're the jerk. Be a good host or don't be a host. You're the jerk. You invited her as your guest. Then you basically said she's not worth your good breakfast food. That was incredibly rude. I think it's a little over the top for her to text you about it later, but she's right that you were a really rude host. You're the jerk. Just very weird, rude behavior on your part. It's yogurt, not a prescription, and it's not like it was made of pure gold and cost thousands of dollars. You're not being asked to feed everyone every day, just your guest for 1 day. Not the jerk. I have no idea what everyone else is on about. You gave her a list of things she could eat, but not letting her have the one thing that's yours makes you the jerk? Also, since she's your friend, shouldn't she be understanding? Yeah, she's a guest, but she also didn't pay for the food. Well, what do you expect? You're on Reddit, the site where 99% of users feel entitled to things that don't belong to them. It's rare to find people on here who have an ounce of common sense. To get popular points around here, you have to constantly act like a victim and let people walk all over you. Have boundaries and stand your ground, and the people here will hate you. Unless you're setting ridiculous boundaries for your mother-in-law, they'll love you for that since they all despise morals, which mother-in-law is usually the only one who has any. Am I the jerk for refusing to lower the volume of my voice when I'm happy, even though it hurts my partner's ears? I am Latina, and he's from a country where people are more quiet. My husband has been irritable lately. I asked him what was going on, and he said that whenever I'm with my family and I get happy or excited, I get very loud and the noise hurts his ears and it makes him irritable, hence why he gets rude. I told him he was being unreasonable and he should suck it up. If he thinks the noise is too loud, he should leave the room, but not tell me to keep it down when I'm with my family and friends. I told him it's okay if he gives me a signal to keep the volume lower when I'm with his friends and family, but not when I'm with mine. My family and friends are the few spaces where I can safely and comfortably be my loud Latina self. He thinks I'm being a jerk for refusing to lower my voice when he's around with my friends and family, that it's not too much to ask because my loud voice hurts his ears. But for me, the volume of my voice is a pivotal part of my expression. I told him no, that he should suck it up or leave the room. Am I the jerk? Edit. Yes, I'm just loud when I'm with my family and friends, not when it's just him and I. I told him to tell me when I'm being loud on the phone at home. Edit 2. Most of my family are loud. I asked him about a particular aunt who is incredibly loud and famous in the family for being so. He said her loudness doesn't bug him or the rest, just my loudness. Edit 3. The loudness doesn't happen in our home. It happens in my parents' home or at my family members' homes. No one ever comes and visits, and he's not obligated to come to family gatherings. I told him he can leave the room, but he's embarrassed that my family will know that he's leaving the room because he doesn't like loudness. We've been together for 10 years, and yes, I was loud from the very start. I'm not loud when we fight. I'm the complete opposite. I'm quiet and calm. And for those who say being Latina has nothing to do with loudness, since I was a kid, I've been going to markets where there's tens of people asking the person for something. The only way to buy your stuff is getting louder and asking for it. It is a cultural thing. Soft, you're the jerk. I am also a Latina, but don't make it my personality to be loud. Marriage is all about compromise. Why should he have to cope with you being loud all the time? Why can't you lower your voice? It's fine if it's when you're with your family, but he shouldn't have to deal with it constantly when it's just you two. Reread the post. She's not loud all the time. She said it's only when she's with her friends and family. He's not dealing with it constantly when it's just them two. Okay, but we can teach kids the difference between inside voices and outside voices. Just because OP is happy doesn't mean she should be obnoxiously loud. You're the jerk. It's a small concession to avoid causing your partner physical pain. My husband gets loud when he's excited too. When I tell him he's too loud, he quiets down because it's basic respect. You're the jerk. I seriously cannot comprehend a situation where my husband would tell me that I was causing him physical pain because I like to shriek and talk too loudly, and my reaction would be, but I just like doing it that way. You're the jerk. Why can't you express yourself without shrieking and yelling? Only work the posted hours. Many years ago, I worked at a place with lots of arcade games and pizza, similar to Chuck E. Cheese. I was hired to do maintenance, repair, and set up of these arcade machines. There was already someone there doing this, but they were never allowed to work more than 40 hours a week, and the place was open 7 days a week, 9 hours a day, 63 hours a week, not including prep for opening and cleanup after closing. At the end of my first shift, I was told that I was also expected to help with cleanup since everyone that worked close had to help with cleanup. All my shifts were close shifts. This meant I had less time before my morning classes than I expected when taking the job, but a few extra bucks was valuable to a starving college student. Fast forward about 2 months. New manager, fresh out of high school, gets his big boy boots on and starts making rules. First rule, a schedule with everyone's hours for the next week will be posted by Friday morning. Second rule, you must clock in before your posted shift start time, but not more than 5 minutes before your shift. Third rule, You must clock out at the end of your posted shift end time, no more than 5 minutes after. At the end of my first shift, after these rules were created, I clocked out and left everyone else to do the cleanup. To be clear, it's not like I was getting time and a half overtime or anything. All I expected was to be paid my normal rate, and they didn't want to pay even that, so I clocked out and left. At the beginning of my next shift, they were angry. They expected me to clock out and then work over an hour for free, every single shift. These were only 5-hour shifts too. I refused. The next week, they posted a new schedule with my shift ending an hour later. Since everyone saw the list, they all got mad. I guess they were all just fine with wage theft until one person refused. The next week, everyone had an extra hour on their shifts. At this point, his wage theft scheme had failed. Fast forward a couple weeks, and this new manager doesn't come in on Thursday. He doesn't come in until Monday. No schedule is posted. Monday afternoon, I go in to get my check and say, "See you next week." I'm told my shift started half an hour ago. I say I made plans since I wasn't on the schedule. No schedule means I couldn't be on it. The manager points to a schedule posted on the wall, printed just hours before, after some of the shifts on it had already started. I thanked him for posting next week's schedule early and started to leave. Then I was threatened with termination, and I kept walking. Came back a week later and talked with a daytime guy doing the same job. He said it was a bad week. Many machines were down, and he was walking around with like $100 in tokens because he was spending much of his time giving refunds, to the point he didn't have enough uninterrupted time to make any repairs. He was also keeping a roll of masking tape with him to tape over the coin slots as the machines failed. This meant a lot more use on the remaining machines, which started to show it quickly. I go to clock in and was told I had been fired. I smiled and walked out. Spoke with the daytime guy a while later. Apparently, they never filled my position. People with mechanical and electrical knowledge willing to work minimum wage are rare. Instead, he was getting 14 hours a week and time and a half overtime, with a base pay almost twice what I was getting. This extra expense came out of the department budget, which also paid for replacement parts. Even before this, it was never enough to buy enough parts. This, from the department budget thing, was from the same manager. He didn't want normal payroll to go up. For a while, basically everyone was carrying around $20 in tokens to give refunds, but all the comps were unacceptable to the manager, so now only the sales desk could issue refunds, which meant ordering pizza took forever, and many people just left angry rather than waiting for a refund. Most machines had tape over the token slots. This backup at the sales desk didn't last long, as few people were coming and no one was booking parties anymore. Other than staff, it was basically empty. It didn't even smell like pizza anymore. With no customers, the daytime guy finally had time to make repairs, but didn't have the parts to do most repairs. As far as I know, that manager stayed there until the place went under about 8 months after I was fired for not working a shift that his own rules said I could not work. Am I the jerk for ditching my friend and her kid at a restaurant because they were late? My friend, Samantha, is a stay-at-home mom and has a 4-year-old daughter, Katie. Since her daughter's birth, she always insisted that I go to her place if I ever want to hang out. Even though she lives about 45 minutes away from me, I always did it in the beginning because I did value our friendship, and Katie was her first, so I could understand how she'd be stressed with a newborn. Recently, I started to put my foot down and wanted her to meet me halfway. I felt like her kid, she only has Katie, was old enough to handle being outside, and I was tired of driving just to hang out at her house. We always picked a place halfway, so I felt like it was doable. During the last 3 hangouts, she was over 30 minutes late, and each time she claimed that she got mom privileges for being late because she had to wrangle her kid into the car and do other mom things I wouldn't understand, according to her, because I'm childless. She asked to hang out this past weekend, and I told her that if she was late again, I'd leave. Lo and behold, the day came and she was late. After 30 minutes, I got up and left, but went to hang out in the coffee shop across the street because I was curious just how late she'd be. She was over an hour late, and when she found out from the waitress that I left, she started to call and text me. She said that I was callous and selfish for making her drive 25 minutes away from her home with a toddler only to leave, and that she only ever came out for my benefit. I told her that I hang out with multiple friends who bring their kids out with us, and they're never late, so it was pretty crappy to blame being late on Katie, who is a perfectly sweet kid. She's never been a problem during our outings. Samantha just kept pulling the "you're not a mom, so you wouldn't get it" card. I heard later from a mutual friend that Samantha has been blasting me in their mommy group and saying I was bullying her for putting her kid first. I feel like her reaction wouldn't be so strong unless she was actually upset, so I'm starting to feel like I am a jerk. I mean, she's right that I don't get it, as I don't have kids, but I still feel annoyed that she's late, and I feel justified for leaving. My time is precious too. I'm not sure whether or not I should reach out. Not the jerk. If she knows it's going to take 30 minutes extra, she should leave 30 minutes earlier. It's really not that hard. Dad here. Being occasionally late is understandable. I've literally had kids throwing up moments before we're supposed to get in the car, or picking up a coffee mug and pouring it on the rug, stuff like that. Some things you just can't avoid. Being consistently late just means she isn't planning well. It does not take 30 minutes to get a kid into the car, so I'm guessing she isn't watching the clock and is blaming her lateness on her kid, which will be really bad once the kid picks up on it and starts thinking there's something wrong with herself because mommy keeps blaming her when talking to other people. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. I'm a mother of 4. Guess what you can't use mom privileges for? School, doctor's appointments, dentist appointments, parties, flights. Guess what else you can't use mom privileges for? Being chronically late. Karen tries to force me to make my son wear a helmet even though he's old enough to make that decision himself. I'm 42, male, and my son, who's 15, is a good kid and he loves to skateboard. He's actually pretty talented and is even sponsored by the local skate shop. He skated since he was 7. Until he was 13 or so, I always made him wear a helmet. He started resisting wearing a helmet around then, and while I would prefer that he does wear one, I know I can't control every aspect of his life. By that point, his body had learned how to fall correctly when he messed up on a trick. I used to skate back in the day. If you skateboard, you know what I mean. So I made a compromise with him. If he's just out street skating with his friends, he doesn't need to wear one. But if he's at a park that requires it, or is skating at a bowl or a half pipe, or if he's otherwise attempting something dangerous for the first time, then he needs to wear one. He readily agreed and has been good about wearing a helmet in those circumstances. Anyway, a couple weeks ago, my wife, who's 41, was running an errand the other day, and she saw our son out skateboarding, doing tricks down a small 5-stair set, and he wasn't wearing a helmet. She flipped out, pulled over, yelled at him in front of his friends, and made him come home. Now, it's not that my wife didn't know about my helmet rules, but in her view, what he was doing qualified as dangerous. He can ollie down stair sets almost 3 times that size. She's never really loved that he's been into skateboarding. She always wanted him to do team sports, and as such, I don't think she fully appreciates how good he is for his age, nor does she understand that he knows what his limits are and what he's doing. She's now insisting that he wear a helmet at all times, much to my son's chagrin. I pointed out to her, privately, that this is ridiculous. He's at an age where he can make this choice himself, and on top of that, our daughter, who's 14, who does cheer and gymnastics and doesn't have to wear a helmet, despite head injuries being fairly common in those sports. To make my point, I got one of those cheerleader helmets and declared that she now needs to wear a helmet too, since her brother has to. Our daughter is kind of a weirdo, and to her credit, thinks this is all pretty funny, and said something like, "I will be known as the helmet queen," and started wearing it at practice. My wife is now freaking out because she doesn't want our daughter to stick out at games or competitions and make people think that she's special. Yes, seriously, she said that. My wife is saying I'm both undermining her and encouraging our son to do dangerous things, and that our daughter is going to get bullied for wearing a helmet. So, am I the jerk? You're the jerk. You're too concerned with being the cool parent. Everyone wears helmets, even Olympic athletes. Aside from safety, he could lose his sponsorship. Nobody wants their brand tied to a gross negligence and poor role models. Even Tony Hawk wears one. Yeah, I was going to say that. Every video I remember seeing of Tony Hawk, he has a helmet on. He doesn't always have pads on, but he always wears a helmet. I think OP needs to make a distinction of when protection is needed. If he's just cruising around and using it as transportation, he's probably fine. If he's jumping down flights of stairs, he probably needs a helmet. Not necessarily from his own skill level, but from possible interference from the outside world, errant cyclists, or oblivious people walking around. You said your daughter is kind of a weirdo, and to her credit, thinks it's all pretty funny. Actually, your daughter sounds like the only sensible one among the 4 of you. She's comfortable enough with herself to know wearing a safety device isn't going to affect her socially in the long run and knows how to embrace change. Frankly, I'm surprised at how level-headed she is when the three of y'all seem to be equally stubborn. While your son needs a crash course in why his safety comes before his looks, and your wife needs to chill out about worrying that your daughter is going to look different, you are by far the biggest jerk of the group for your blatant disregard for your son's physical safety and dragging your daughter into your argument with your wife. You're the jerk. Also, your daughter is hilarious. You're the jerk. I'm a nurse, and the one time I wasn't home to make him wear a helmet, he crashed his skateboard and was injured. Head injuries can be serious and are preventable with a helmet. Again, you're the jerk. Parents told me that spending long amounts of time with any of their adult kids is bad for their marriage. I, 26, male, was recently told by my parents, who are in their late 50s, that I wouldn't be able to live with them for more than a night, even if I lost my job, because it's bad for their marriage. My sister, who's 29, has a chronic illness that forces her to visit my parents for about 1 week at a time to see a specialist in our home city. My parents told me that even my sister spending a week with them is bad for their marriage, and they have to put an end to it. This whole conversation started because there might be a lapse in my lease, and I might not have a place to live for a few weeks in June. I own a travel trailer, so they said I could live in that at a campground before my new lease starts. I was shocked that even if push came to shove, I wouldn't be able to land at their place for a short while. 2 years ago, when lockdown hit, my girlfriend, 24 female, and I were displaced. We crashed at a friend's place for 2 months because my parents, who literally own 2 houses, wouldn't allow us to stay at either. My mom told me then, "We would always let you stay with us, but we just can't house your partner as well. She's a taker." Okay, whatever. My mom was newly sober, so I didn't think much of it. Well, 2 years later, here we are, and I am in fact not allowed to stay with them. I quoted my mom back to her. She called me manipulative. My dad shouted at me, and they both told me, "A lot has changed in the last 2 years. We are doing a lot better, and living with you is bad for our marriage. We can't live with you at all anymore unless you become very sick or are in severe debt." Well, guess they're going straight to the nursing home if they live long enough. More context. My mom drinks too much, and she's been sober for 2.5 years. My parents have seen the same therapist since, which seems fishy. Mother went from aggressively pushing meds on the whole family for years to staunchly hating all meds. End rant. Crap like this makes me so grateful for the family I'm building with my girlfriend. No plans on having kids though. Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video. Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.